Tammy Bitanga is part of Hoʻōla Nā Pua's team as Interim Director of Community Programs. Tammy offers insight, expertise that can only come from being a survivor of childhood sexual exploitation. She infuses her boundless energy into organizing community awareness events and lends her experience from her own healing journey the role of advocate to other victims and survivors. Tammy's life story is about rising out of the circumstances of early childhood abuse that led to being in the system, becoming a chronic runaway, victimization, and utter despair. Her testimony highlights the need for advocacy and mentoring for trafficking victims who desperately need safe adults in their life to guide them to healing and hope for a bright future. Hi, Tammy. Welcome to the Conscious Cup. It's so great to have you here. You are the Interim Director of Community Programs at Hoʻōla Nā Pua, which is one of my beloved nonprofit partners for Social Brew, and you are also a survivor of human trafficking yourself. So I would love for you to just start off, tell us a little bit about yourself, your story, if you'd like to, and how you got started at Hoʻōla Nā Pua.
I went to a women's conference in 2010. And I saw these people talking about human trafficking. And I was like, oh, what is human trafficking? What are they talking about? So I went to their breakout session and I quickly learned what human trafficking was. And I thought to myself, oh my, okay, that's terrible. And I, went back into my bubble. I was working at a law office at the time and going to church, and I had just gotten married a couple years before that, and my son had graduated high school. So my life was pretty stable, and I was, just kind of living a good life. And so 2011, I went back to that same conference. They have a yearly women's conference out of, at the time it was Hope Chapel Waikele. Now they are Inspire Church. Their pastors are Pastor Mike and Lisa Kai, and they do a wonderful job of, informing our community about things and how to live our best lives. And they're very Christ-centered, and I enjoy going and attending their conferences. So I continue to go. So anyways, in 2011, I went back to that conference. And at that time, I was in charge of our community outreach, our church, with our women's team. And so I said to our team, we're going to do something with these people, Jessica Munoz and her friends, and we're going to help them bring awareness to this thing called human trafficking. And so we did a small movie. It was a premiere called Sex and Money. We had a little open market in our foyer, and we just did a little fundraiser for them. After that, I was very passionate about getting involved with their organization and wanted to really come alongside of them. And so I shared with Jessica a little bit about my passion for it, but nothing personal. It was just like, oh yeah, I want to help you folks. And so shortly after that, we went to a conference on the continent in California. And at that conference, I heard a survivor speak, and I was very moved by her testimony. Her name was Leah Albright. She recently got married. I got to do things at her bridal shower, cook her food, and bring in, some lepo'o making. It was very full circle for us. It was amazing. So this is about, 10 years later. So,
Wow.
Anyway, that's another whole story. But, I heard Leah share her story, and I was like, wait a minute, that is my story. How is it that all these years I had no idea that I was a victim of human trafficking? And I can tell you why, is because we didn't have a law when I was 15 years old to protect me against a trafficker. We didn't have a law to protect children all across the nation. The law came down in 2000 from the UN, and America adopted it. And in Hawaii, we only have had that law on our books since 2016. So Governor Ige signed that into law in 2016. So in 2012, when I heard Leah give her testimony, I was like a realization of I was a victim of something and it wasn't my choice. So when we talk about commercial sexual exploitation of children, short CSEC, we are talking about children that do not have a choice to be prostituted. And so that's basically what it is the prostitution of children. We do not say prostitute and child in the same sentence. These are victims of sex trafficking. We cannot continue the language and having prostitute and child in the same sentence ever again, right? We just, that is not, in Hawaii, we would say that's not pono, it's not correct, it's not right, it's not what we want to talk about. It's something that is a crime against a child. So learning that at that point, I was in 2011, 12, that was where the journey started. And being able to come alongside Jessica and her team and start doing fundraisers and awareness, that's how it started for me, is really being passionate about giving a contribution into this movement, this anti-trafficking movement of fundraising and awareness, and never intended to share my story publicly. So at that conference, we were driving back to the hotel and I had shared with the rest of the team. There was about 8 of us in a van. And I was like, hey guys, this happened to me. And they're like, what are you talking about? This happened to you. What is this? And I said, when I was 15 years old, I had a pimp and he sold me on the streets of Waikiki. And everybody was just like, what are you talking about? Because I was this very nice church lady. So how could that have happened to me? So that happened to me. And there's a lot of history. There's a lot of things that happened in my past that I was vulnerable for that trafficker to target me. One of the things being that I was in foster care. Another thing is that I had a lot of early childhood adverse experiences, otherwise known as ACEs. So people in the social work field often look at ACEs for children that have behaviors that are not beneficial to them, or I would say like at the safety, like they do like risky behaviors, I would say harmful behaviors. So for me, it was drinking. For me, it was smoking weed. For me, it was doing cocaine. For me, it was having a ton of boyfriends all the time. And so, when we look at that for children, then we can address, looking to how do we help them? Yeah. What are the things that we can help them with? And so I think to answer your question, that was like the long story long. The
No,
long
I love
story
it.
long is, so that brings me to today. I've been with Hoʻōla Nā Pua now. We organized and became a nonprofit in 2013. So I've been with the organization since 2013. And my first role was event coordinator, event planner. We did a lot of fundraising, and I want to say that your family, your mom and your dad and yourself, you folks participated and contributed a lot in our early years. So I want to say mahalo to you and your mom and your dad for that, because those were the early roots, right? Those were the days that nobody believed in what Hoʻōla Nā Pua was doing. We were the new kid on the block, and funding and people giving us a chance to, really come out in the community and be like, we want to change the trajectory of children's lives that have suffered severe trauma. People didn't really understand at that time what sex trafficking was and the complex trauma that people suffer from when they are exposed that way. And so I'm very grateful for the early years. I was a volunteer for 6 years. So in 2018, I got on board as a employee. I quit my real job. So I come out of a 30-year career as a bookkeeper, quit my real job, and this is now my fun job. How fun is it?
Amazing.
extremely
love that.
fun. But,
I love
it's a very heavy topic, right? It's a very
Yes.
heavy topic. And so for me to come to work every day, it's a very interesting, when I look at my own self, like if I like remove my own self from my own self, right? If I'm looking at myself from a different, like a third party lens or a foreign lens, I'm like, who are you at all? Like, how do you get through your day every day, talking to clients, talking to funders, talking to your staff, talking to the staff, talking to donors? And how is it that you're able to carry the load, right? Like, it's a different type of load that I carry, right? It's a responsibility. It's a calling. It's a kuleana, right? And so when I look at that, and people will often question me, like, how do you not burn out? Like, what does this? And it's not anything that I can actually put my finger on. When people will feel sorry for a survivor or victim, when they will say something to me like, oh my gosh, that is just so terrible, or, something, something. And then I'm thinking to myself, I've already lived through all of that. I've really been through that war already myself. How do I have so much empathy? And how do I look at something that is so hopeless at times when people don't want the help? Yeah, when they continuously go back to the drug, they continuously go back to the street, they continuously go back to their trafficker. And how do you keep that hope? Yeah, how do you keep that in front of you? How do you know that they are resilient? Well, because that girl was me, that boy was me. I was in the game in and out for 20 years. I wore a mask for 30 years because I wore a mask long before I ever got trafficked. I have severe sexual abuse from an early age of 4 all the way till I was 13, and severe physical abuse from my stepmother, and severe emotional abuse also from my stepmother and my father. So, when you grow up that way and you have to survive, it's like part of me already. And
Yeah.
so sometimes even trauma, a normal trauma, like it's like for me, it's like I should not be okay. Like a
Yeah.
normal person's not okay with the type of trauma that I experience daily. So for example, like my son suffered a brain aneurysm, and I'm just like, it's normal. My
Yeah.
husband suffered from COVID and went to the hospital, and he thought he was going to die, and I wasn't going to be there for him. And it was just normal. Like my continence, I don't know what you call it, continence, is like normal. Like, what is wrong with me? How do I not show emotions? How am I not breaking down? It's just a really, really crazy thing. And I don't know. I
Yeah.
just,
It's just so
I don't
much
know.
trauma that it's like you've had to survive. Like you've had
Yeah,
to just kind of hunker
it's quite
down and
bizarre if
like
you
push
ask me.
through.
Yeah.
I think it's inspiring. I don't know, just I've known you for a little while and you've
Yeah.
graciously educated me, when I was very new in this whole conversation and just wanting to learn as much as possible. And like you said, it's kind of also the rhetoric around survivors and around just the issue of human trafficking and child sex trafficking, I think is very important. And people don't realize that, and it's like, you don't know what you don't know, right? So it's like everyone's on a journey to educating themselves. But I think it's just so thank you for just, yeah, sharing your story and sharing all of this because I think it really is inspiring, not only to me, but you never know who will listen to this, who, like you said, you went to that conference and you were like, that's me, and I relate to that. And I think about, that must have been so overwhelming for you too at that moment to realize, for it to all come together and to go, oh, there's this other part that of my story that I didn't even realize. I just thought that's normal, or that's everyone has stuff and I just go through, we just go through stuff. But what I love is you've been able to take that pain, to take all of your experience, and you've turned it into something, and you've actually, yeah, you've channeled it, and you've been able to share that love, that empathy with so many other survivors and so many other people, and educating them. And that's not easy to do, to stand in the gap. And so I just want to acknowledge that and thank you for just for standing in the gap, because that's not an easy place to stand. It would have been so much easier probably for you just to realize that personally, and then to go home and go, okay, I'm not going to get close to this issue, or I don't want to, go into that into that arena. But I just think that's amazing. But I would love to talk a little bit about your current role at Hoʻōla Nā Pua with the Interim Director of Community Programs. What does that look like for you, and how has your personal experience, because I know you're a very relational person, because I know you personally, but how has that kind of been infused into what you're doing now for the organization versus when you were volunteering?
It doesn't really translate very differently, you know.
Mm.
I think the biggest thing is the administrative pieces where, I've got to, gather data. I've got to
Mhm.
have the team that I work with input their time and approve their time sheet and try to help, manage some of that. And, you know, like encouraging our team to like get our data in so that our funding sources can follow. I think that is the most different, but it is not, it's not something that I would want to do. It's necessary right now. Like I said earlier, I have a 30-year career as a bookkeeper. If I wanted to take track of numbers and do billing, I would have stayed a bookkeeper, you know? So I think that for me is the piece of my job that is different in that way. I'm still in the field. I still have clients that I meet with weekly. I still as a care coordinator, so I haven't given up that piece of my previous role. I still will go in and do hoku services and facilitate services. I still have a mentee. So, it's really the balance. It's really this team that I have been working with for quite a while. We've been together. Sometimes the players change, but the roles are the same. We do community outreach. I did 2 panels yesterday, which I'm normally not the presenter, but for whatever reason, we just came off of our yearly big fundraiser, our gala. And so for whatever reason it was, I booked myself for 2 presentations. I'm not sure why I did that. One was the Hawaii Tourism Authority. We were part of a panel. I invited law enforcement, a lived experience expert, and our executive director, Jamie Miller. Dr. Jamie Miller is our new executive director. And we did a panel. I got to be the moderator and, share about what we're doing in the community, how we partner with law enforcement, and how we partner with other survivors and lived experience experts in order to, have the full scope, because we can't be talking about people. We need to hear from the people that this crime has affected. And we do have survivors in our community with, I like to call it, transferable skills. So I know of survivors who are consultants and they do a lot of work in the field, in the anti-trafficking field, around education. So they're educating people on the intersection of substance usage and trafficking. There are survivors who are marketing specialists. So they have a niche for the marketing and the communications. And so I know of artists, survivors that are artists. And so I want to include them and partner with them and participate with them in any way that they would like to participate. When I first came to Jessica and told her that, I was a survivor, that I had had an experience of trafficking when I was a 15-year-old, I told her, do not tell anybody this. This is only for your information. I'm just telling it to you so that you can relate and you can know that I know what's going on, and I will help inform you when I see that maybe the truth is being skewed a bit. So I just kind of like let her know that I would be available for her in that way. And then as time went on and we were going and doing, different types of activities and stuff out in the community, it was very clear to me. Now the sun's coming in because my window is open. You see the sunshine, like, ooh.
I love it.
So, that was extra. So when I would tell her like that, and then we would go and do things, and then I would see people like questioning her, like, are you
Yeah.
sure it's happening in Hawaii? Are you sure that people are being trafficked in Hawaii? Are you sure kids are being sold in Hawaii for sex? I was like, oh my gosh, how do people not understand this crime? And so after about 2 years of me making hush hush, then I came to tell my story in public. And it's very
Wow.
taxing, like if
Yes.
you're asking a survivor to tell the worst day of her life, right? So that people understand, please pay them, right?
Yeah.
If you're
Yeah.
asking a survivor to be your keynote at your gala, please pay them. I'm a little bit different in that I have had, a good 20 years of healing under my belt. But a lot of our survivors that are in the anti-trafficking movement today, they're newly found freedom, right? They haven't been out of the game for too long. And so that re traumatization is real. And so I caution when I talk to survivors and when I'm going to engage and ask them to, do some type of something. I'm not asking them to share their story. I'm asking them to contribute how they want to contribute, whether
Mhm.
it is sharing their artwork or sharing their mana'o as far as, like their marketing capability, So I think I'm now being a little bit redundant. So I want to
No,
give you
not at
back
all.
the mic, Simone, so you can guide us in our interview.
I love that. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that re-traumatization is really, people don't know, right? And it's a very like when they're not aware of human trafficking and then they suddenly become aware, whether it's through a documentary or they hear a speaker, right? And they hear a survivor talk. Often it's that selfishness, right? That you have to kind of hold back from that. Oh, I want to know every detail. It's like, we don't need all the details to get the picture of how dark this world really is, but we need to focus on, like you said, the skills and the talents and the gifts and what do you bring to the table, because that piece is the more empowering part. Like, and once you
Mhm.
integrate that, like you have so beautifully done in your own life with your pain, turning that into purpose, I think, yeah, just being able to hold that space for someone and appreciate that for what that is, and appreciate, yeah, just someone sharing their heart with you rather than yeah, me selfishly wanting to figure out, okay, what's let me figure every detail out so I really get this. It's like, we don't need that, So but I would love to hear too about, I know Ho'ola Nā Pua does a lot of different things. You guys have this sort of holistic approach, I feel like, to a very large issue. And so I'd love you to just overview for those who don't know. I have it on my site, but I know I contribute through Social Brew to Pearl Haven, but I would love you to just kind of describe what each of the programs and initiatives are, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. And
Mhm.
I had to like move because the sun is literally just shining right now. It's so beautiful.
That's
So,
perfect.
Hoʻōla Nā Pua, we are very much into the awareness, education, prevention piece.
Mm,
We believe that, Hoʻōla Nā Pua exists. We are committed to the prevention of sex trafficking. So we believe that if we educate children, we can help them to be aware, to be more aware of their vulnerabilities, the risk factors, help them to understand what a healthy relationship is, what is not a healthy relationship.
mm,
So we can help them to not become a victim. Getting ahead of it and being on the prevention side is key. We know that we're not going to be able to do that for every child, right?
mhm.
Sometimes
Yeah.
children are going to be exposed to a perpetrator, to a trafficker. They will experience trafficking. And so that is why we have created a safe place for them to heal, which is called
Mm,
Pearl Haven. So Jessica's vision was to create that place because back in 2011, maybe even earlier than that, she's a nurse practitioner, and she was seeing children coming into her emergency room and they had injuries that were not lining up to the story. And
mm,
so when she would call out for help, and this is how, Ho'ola Nā Pua came to be, is that there were not service providers understanding what this whole thing about trafficking was, what these
mm,
children were suffering from was indeed being exploited, being abused, being sold for sex, and having to educate our community. So we do provide care for children who have been exploited at Pearl Haven. We serve 11 to 17-year-olds. Primarily, it is for children that reside in Hawaii. However, we will take children from out of state. The reason that we, wanted to have a place of healing here in Hawaii was because we were sending our children, our local children, out of state for treatment. It wouldn't be the way that we are raised here in Hawaii.
mm,
Culturally, we're very diverse. We have many cultures in one place. So, Japanese culture, we have American, like so many culture, right? Filipino, Hawaiian, Native Hawaiian, indigenous people groups, Micronesian, Tahitian, Samoan. We have all the groups here. And so when
yeah.
you have this and you grow up like this, and then
Mm,
you go to the continent and it's only basically one type of culture, then it's very difficult for our children to adapt and heal. So Jessica's vision was to create a place where we could be integrate the culture into the program. And
mhm,
so that's what we have done at Pearl Haven. So we do lei making, we have hula, we make poi because we grow kalo, we make lau lau because we have plenty luau leaf. We have a big property, 12 acres plus. Sometimes we say 13 acres. I'm like, oh, I don't go in those bushes. But we have a lot of bushes around us. So I would say, we have a lot of fruit trees, and so we harvest some fruit. We grow banana. At Pearl Haven, we have animals, so they can go outside and play with the dogs. They can go and care for the horses. So there's a lot of things for the children to do at Pearl Haven. We provide mentoring through our Starfish mentoring program for children ages 11 to 24. So outside of Pearl Haven and inside of Pearl Haven. So the children that reside at Pearl Haven, they can reside there anywhere from 9 months to 18 months. Ideally, it's 12 months. We would hope that they would get through their treatment plan within 12 months. But we understand that it's long term, right? Healing takes a
yeah.
long time. It really is. a stepping stone. They really do need a continuum of care even after Pearl Haven. So having them have a mentor through Hoʻōla Nā Pua is key, because then their mentor can go meet with them after they're PAL with their program. Most times in a residential treatment program or any type of treatment program, you are not going to have contact with your staff after you leave your program. Ethically, there's some type of thing that I'm not a social worker, so I can't really speak on the thinking about that. But for us with Hoʻōla Nā Pua and our community programs, such as Pearl Haven, the Starfish Mentoring Program, Hoku Group Services, we see the children on a continuum, yeah? So Hoku Group Services is where we go into different facilities where children are. So we could technically have a referral, like we could engage with the facility like Halikipa, and we could tell Halikipa's staff or maybe their therapist or their case manager, like, hey, do you folks know about Pearl Haven? Like maybe your resident might fit the criteria for Pearl Haven. And that criteria is having a severe emotional disturbance that disrupts your daily living. I think that as clinicians, they have probably more technical and they look at more things on the clinical side than I have knowledge of. We do have a process, an intake process. It's a clinical decision to place a child at Pearl Haven. So then it's a clinical discharge as well, right? So they're going to work a program. And then they're going to be discharged from the program. So if we are talking about that, it really is, I'm not sure if your listeners, your attenders have the stages of change, if they know of that. So when children enter Pearl Haven, they're in a certain stage, and then 3 or 4 months later they're in a different stage, and then 5 months later they're in addition, and so when we're looking at children in that type of situation, we're not looking at perfect, right? We don't want perfect. We want progress. We want to see them processing through their anger, processing through their hurt, processing through trust, like all of these things that help children to be safe, right? So it's really demonstrating safety at Pearl Haven is what we're really looking at. And then everything else kind of falls into place there. We do have an advocacy program, and that program is for basically, 18 to 24. But sometimes I do have clients older than that. I do have a couple of clients in their 30s and then in their 40s. So we understand that surviving human trafficking is really a lifetime of healing, and you never know when you're going to have a setback, and Ho'ola Nā Pua is here for that, right? We're here to help you walk through your setback. I would like to grow the advocacy program. Funding is always, always one of those things where, if we had the funding, if I had endless funds, I would continuously hire people and then go out and reach more people. The need is there. There's many gaps in services. I'll just put it out there, we don't have a transitional housing program for the 18 to 24-year-olds. We utilize other agency in Hawaii. Rise is one of the agency. Halikipa is another agency. So we partner with them and we do referrals out to them. Ho'ola Nā Pua has not taken that on. Not to say that we might not in the future, depending on the need and the funding. It may be something that we could look into, because we do find it difficult in that transitional age, 18 to 24 years old. Housing is a huge, huge gap in Hawaii. We have a lot of unattended, or I shouldn't say unattended, but children that are without shelter, without home. Yeah.
That's incredible. Wow. And I was just going back to Pearl Haven. Do you have boys and girls, or is it just girls? Or
at the moment we serve female identifying
Yes.
students,
Thank you. Yes.
residents. Yeah. So we did change our, at first it was only girls. Yeah. But we know that Hawaii has we know that the LGBTQ and also our Mahu community, if somebody would want to come to Pearl Haven identifying female, that would also be a clinical, placement. And we would depend on the clinical team to make that determination if they were a good fit for Pearl Haven. But our license, it says that we can take female identifying clients. So there is a need for boys that suffer complex trauma, that have severe emotional disturbances that disrupt their daily living. We have those boys. Most of those boys are incarcerated. It's very sad to me that we continue to incarcerate children, but it is necessary to keep our community safe and to keep them safe from their own self. Yeah. Because when you're out there committing crimes, it's very dangerous. Um, we just recently in the news had a 16-year-old charged with murder.
Well, you guys are doing some amazing work, but if people, even outside of Hawaii and the other islands, like, what would you say is the first step to just educating themselves or getting involved in their local communities? Like, what would you say is the most important first step for them?
So we have a program manager, direct service program manager on Hawaii Island, and they do mentoring, they do hoku services. They also do education trainings over there on Hawaii Island. So I would love to see us go statewide, Kauai, Maui, Lanai. I would love to see us expand, yeah, to all the major islands. And I think that awareness is the most needed, and awareness with a purpose.
Yes.
So I would consider Hoʻōla Nā Pua one of the experts in the field of anti-trafficking in Hawaii. And I would say that we have a pretty good handle on the services, the service provision. We don't have it all together, and we cannot do this all by ourselves. And that is why we have
Absolutely.
community partners like Child and Family Service, Catholic Charities. I mean, I don't want to leave anybody out. So, but I would need 1 hour to
Yes.
name off all of our partners.
All the partners.
Um,
Yeah.
Halikipa, Rise, you know, even law enforcement, because keeping children safe, we have to call in law enforcement sometime.
Yeah.
Child welfare, we need those referrals from child welfare to get these children into treatment. So I would say that the main thing is the awareness piece of becoming aware of what are you looking at. If you do not have the time, if you do not have the desire to be on the front line doing direct services as far as mentoring or hoku services or educating people, then we always need funding, right? And
Yes.
every little bit, it
Mm.
adds up. It's a whole village, right, that sustains Hoʻōla Nā Pua. We have a $1 a day campaign that's $30 a month, basically. We have 1,000 from 1,000 campaign that's $1,000 a year. It breaks down to $84 a month. We do have big events like our gala. If you want to do a corporate sponsorship, we will have a golf tournament this coming year in 2024.
Amazing.
If you want to send in gift cards for Timmy T's or Zippy's or Target, or gift cards are amazing, right? Because you get the credit for it. Once you donate to Hoʻōla Nā Pua, we will send you an in-kind donation form. You've gotten one before, right, Simone?
Yes, I have. I have.
So, that is, something that your contribution is recognized. If you volunteer with
Yes.
us, you will get volunteer hours. volunteer hours add up, and we can go to our funders and say, I can go to our funders and say, I have 3 interns right now. Because I have a lot of work. Our community program department has a lot of work to do. And we have 3 interns on deck. We have 2 coordinators on deck, 2 managers on Oahu. On Hawaii Island, we have a direct service manager and 2 coordinators. We need more help. So volunteers coming on board to help us do Hoku services, be mentors. Our mentors are all volunteer. Yeah. So they get hours. It's tireless work. You can't get tired, right? You know that their lives depend on you, right? Not me, all of us.
All of
Their
us.
lives depend on all of us. Everybody has to put their hands to the plow. If we don't start addressing this on the demand side, this atrocity is demand driven. If people don't buy children, we don't sell children, right?
Absolutely.
So that is where the bottom line is like educating people that buying humans is not okay. It doesn't give you a right to do what you want to them because you've paid for them.
Yes.
So we really have to take a look at that society wise when we look at, strip clubs, illicit massage parlors, those types of things.
Even pornography, right? And social media
Pornography is a
and
huge gateway. Huge gateway. And children are being exploited online. And that crime is so hard because who's behind the camera?
Yes.
Right? When you have these children that are being exploited online. So we, at Hoʻōla Nā Pua, we are doing, more direct service work, but we also, that education and prevention piece is very strong, and educating people to not participate. Imagine that if people stopped buying children, we'd put them out of business.
Yeah,
we put the traffickers out of business. Children will not be harmed.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
That's kind of where we land.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tammy. Thank you for your time and just educating our audience here. This is definitely the mission, the basis of why I started Social Brew and why I'm doing this. And so I think we all have a part to play. And so I really want people to hear that. You may not always be on the front lines, or you might be. You might want to get trained and do that. But you also, whether it's in business, film, whatever it is that you're passionate about, I feel like we can all create awareness around this issue. And even just as simple as starting with, I know it just started with me kind of educating my family about this issue as I was being educated. So that's really what it was, is I just couldn't stop talking about it. And they were like, okay, like we'll watch the movie or we'll do this, But I think that's where it really sparks some really interesting conversations, because we don't like what we're uncomfortable with just in general as human beings. And so, but we have to get up close. We have to see the darkness in order to draw the connections, in order to integrate with the light as well. And so, and have that balance. And yeah, so I just thank you so much for your time. And yeah, and I'll talk to you soon.